All right, well, let's get started, y'all. I'm gonna move towards my mat. I am gonna mute everybody, but if you ever have a question or comment during class, just unmute yourself or use the chat box down there at the bottom of your screen. You can click on that because I do keep an eye on that as well. Hold on, yes. All right, so let me go over props. If you have the usual things, you can grab those. So I would like you to have a yoga strap ideally. If you don't have a yoga strap, using a long scarf or a rolled up bath towel does work. This will be towards the end of class when we do our Supta Padangusthasana for the hips and the hamstrings. So have one of those nearby. We're gonna start in that Supta Baddha Konasana, so our supported bound angle pose today. So a bolster or just a bed pillow or a cushion would be great to help support the legs. We'll take that to the front of the mat where the legs will be. If you have yoga blocks, have those nearby, cushions, anything else that you have been bringing into your practice, and a little eye covering of some sort for the end of practice as well. And then a folded bath towel or blanket to provide additional support for our first posture for the spine and the back of the head. So what I'm using is just a throw blanket, a little quilt here. And I've already started by getting it into this long rectangular fold. And ideally, we wanna get it into a smaller rectangle. So I'm gonna fold my blanket one more time in half and then take it long edge to long edge so that I end up with this longer, skinnier rectangle. Now, the narrower your fold and the thicker it is, the more you're gonna get in the pose for the release for those shoulders, okay? If your fold is flatter or wider, you'll have a little bit more support for the shoulders. So that can depend on what feels best for your body. And if you don't have these props, don't stress about it. You can still get the benefits of the pose, okay? So if we have our folded towel or blanket, we'll take that to the back of our mat. We will sit down on the ground and leaving a few inches, about 1 hand space between that short end of the blanket and the low back can be nice, especially those of us that take care of our low back. It lets the low back sink a little bit. But you will slide your blanket further away from you or closer in and find your comfort level. And then we'll just bring our legs over the pillow to start. Lengthen out that low back and release the spine down our support here. And as usual, loosen things up, move the ponytails out of the way. If the head needs some additional support, if you have leftover blanket, tuck that under, or place your folded bath towel or a smaller pillow under the head. Draw the shoulder blades apart, and then we'll drop the elbows out from our shoulders and come into our cactus arms. So you'll bring the elbows down to the ground, bent to 90, and then try to let the backs of the hands flop towards the ground here. So this is the chest opening expansion part. Now for the lower half of the body, again, if you're taking care of your low back, it can feel quite nice just to keep your feet planted to the mat. Maybe bring your feet a little wider than the hips, turn the toes in, let the weight of the knees fall in. Tucking that pillow behind the knee creases can feel nice. Otherwise, Baddha Konasana, soles of the feet come together and the knees fall open with the support of that pillow, a little bit less intense, just starting to get into some of that hip area. And then of course, we always have the option just to straighten the legs out. Again, maybe bring the feet a little wider than the hips and allow the feet to fall open in more of a Shavasana position. So take a moment here, get organized, get comfortable. Start to settle in for our practice today. So it's always important to recenter and reconnect to our body and our breath before we start any movement so that we are able to move safely and mindfully throughout our practice. Once we get organized and comfortable, let's cultivate an element of stillness here. Start to feel the weight of the body sink towards the earth. Closing the eyes and redirecting our attention inward and allowing our mind to drop down onto our mat this morning. We'll start by releasing and relaxing the whole body, consciously moving through our body and mentally scanning the body from the crown of the head all the way down to those fingertips and toes. Relax all those little muscles across the face. Poof the cheeks with air, wiggle out the mouth as needed. Relax the throat, feeling the weight of the shoulders and elbows sink into the ground. Now, if the backs of the hands don't easily touch, you can continue to just let gravity traction them out as those muscles across the front of the chest and shoulder open, or make your adjustments so that you're comfortable. Moving in around the torso, softening the belly and the muscles down the back. Let's pause a little longer around the pelvic region today. So see if you can start to feel and notice the area around the pelvic bowl, the bones, or the thigh bones. Move into the hip sockets. Svadhisthana chakra is also associated with our reproductive system and urinary system. So these poses will help improve those areas of our body. And it's also associated with the element of water. So as we know, water can be very strong and powerful and move mountains. Water goes with the flow and follows the path of least resistance. And water can also be very still, so still that we can see our reflection in the surface of it. So just like water, continue to let the rest of the body moving down through the legs relax and release, all the way down into the ankles, the feet, and the toes. As usual, if we notice areas that we might be taking care of, let's honor and recognize those areas. Remember that we also bring in the element of ahimsa, or non-violence towards ourselves and our bodies. As we continue to let the weight of the body sink towards the earth, let's now spread our awareness to the rhythm of the natural breath. Simply observe and watch the body breathe. And we'll try to move this breath into the most even, smooth, and equal breath that we can, in and out through the nose. And on those inhales, notice how the body naturally expands as we breathe in some fresh air and energy this morning. And on our exhales, we'll notice how the body naturally contracts as it lets go of stale old air and energy. So we are going to move this breath into a pranayama exercise this morning. This is a wave-like breath, or a 3-part breathing technique. We'll simply concentrate the mind on these areas of the body. If it helps you concentrate at this time, you can just slide your hands down, placing your right hand on the abdomen and bringing your left hand on top of the chest near the heart. Do try to let the upper arm bones continue to be relaxed towards the ground. And continuing to move at a nice equal, even pace in and out through the nose. On our next inhale, we'll start with the belly and we'll allow that abdomen to expand. We'll continue to fill the body, allowing the chest and rib cage expand. And bringing that breath all the way up to the brim in the throat. And then on the exhale, we reverse that breath back out. So we start at the top, soften the throat, relax the chest, and let the belly drop back down into the body. Again, on the inhale, we start with the bottom, roll that breath in like a wave, letting the abdomen expand. Continue to fill, chest and rib cage expands, all the way up into the throat. And exhale, the breath rolls all the way back out like a wave, softening the throat, the chest, And we're able to draw in that belly if we want a little bit more by adding a very gentle contraction at the bottom of that breath, pulling the navel towards the spine. So let's flow through a couple more rounds at our own rhythm and pace. To help even that breath out, mentally count the breath. So when we get to our inhales, just mentally count the number that you're filling up from the bottom to the top. And when you get to the exhale, breathe the same number back out. And we'll follow one more round. This last round, we want to try to make this our biggest breath of our morning yet. We'll add 1 or 2 counts both to the inhale and the exhale. So really feel that expansion on our next breath in. Try to fill ourselves up as much as possible. And whenever we get to our next exhale, take the effort and time to really empty, 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 and squeeze every last drop out. Let it all go. Exhale away any tension or stress in the mind and body. At the bottom of that exhale, we will let go of trying to follow and control the breath for a moment. Let it wander off wherever it wants to go. Start to feel the physical body once again, relaxed on the floor and on our props. Waking the body up, starting with the toes, give them a little wiggle. Wake the fingertips up, a gentle rock of the head side to side. And the hands can come back down beside the body if they were resting on top of the body. If the knees are open wide in Baddha Konasana, float the knees up. And let's all try to stretch our legs out right down the middle of our mat. On our next inhale, float your arms up towards the ceiling. And let's reach our arms overhead here to our long body stretch. Now, if you're more elevated on your props, just be mindful because it will have an effect on the stretch for the shoulders. Point and flex the feet a couple times. If we have the pillow under the legs, the heels and the legs might even, lower legs might float from the floor. One more big breath in here. Spread the fingers and toes, create a lot of space in the body. And then on the exhale, walk the feet in, float your knees up, and we'll roll to one side. And pause just for a moment in sleeping baby pose. And then press into the ground and we'll come up just enough to slide our props out. So we'll come back down to our back today so that we can do some of these roly-poly movements to help loosen up our joints. Really important to do, at least for me, first thing in the morning. This is kind of how I start my mornings because I usually wake up and I'm very stiff and unable to move. So doing these roly-poly movements around the joints, and that's not a technical term, helps loosen that area up. So we'll come back down to the ground, roll back onto our back, loosen up the clothing. Slide those legs right down the middle of the yoga mat, bring the insides of the legs and feet to touch. Draw the arms down beside the body, tuck the shoulder blades under. So the head, the spine, the legs, everything should be in a nice alignment here. We'll start to follow our breath again. So this is a vinyasa. On the inhale, re-extend those arms up to the ceiling and all the way back overhead. Simultaneously flex the feet. So you're pulling your toes towards your shin bones. You will feel your rib cage, abdomen stretch, and the low back gently arch. On our exhales, we will pump the arms all the way back down and point the toes forward to the front of our mat. This pose is called water pump pose. It helps improve our circulation and improves our coordination. So on the inhale, flex the feet, toes to shins, reach those arms overhead, create a lot of length. Exhale, create some strength now, point the toes. With some strength, press those arms down, pretend like you're moving through thick mud and draw the belly in. Inhale into extension, reaching overhead. If we want a little bit more, as we pump those arms down and point the toes, we draw the belly in and we float the head up, looking towards the toes. That will also stretch out the root of the neck. Inhale, toes and fingers reach to that back wall, relax the head down. Exhale, nice powerful exhale. That should contract the abdominal muscles, push those arms down beside the body. One more time, follow the breath, water pump pose. We'll meet on our inhale when we get there, and we'll move right into flowing Pavanamuktasana. So this will warm the abs and the hips a little bit more. On our next exhale, same thing. Draw the belly in, pump the arms, but this time, pull your right knee in towards the torso. If the head is lifting, you can draw the nose towards the knee. Inhale with control, re-extend the arms and the legs. Exhale, use the core, bend the left knee in, so we're alternating side to side. Push those arms down, inhale, lengthen. So keep going right to left. So this just gently warms those muscles around the hips. We're also loosening up around those shoulders as we extend and pump the arms. Do draw that low belly in, so this does tone the abdominal muscles. And it also massages our digestive system, ascending and descending colon. So let's do one more to our right side. Nice exhales, one more to the left side. We'll meet on the inhale, stretching everything out. Take your time to catch up. Exhale, float both arms down beside the body. Tuck those shoulders under, walk the feet in, heels towards the sit bones. Those of you that have a yoga block, take the yoga block on its low setting, placing it right between the inner thighs. If we do not have a yoga block, just maintain a few inches of distance between the knees and the feet and make sure the knees aren't falling open. So pretend you're squeezing an invisible yoga block. Knees should track to toes. On the inhale, squeeze the backside, flowing bridge pose, and float the hips up towards the ceiling. You don't have to go very far. Take your time. Exhale, equal amount of time, keeping the breath equal, lower the hips back down. Inhale, tighten up the hamstrings, the glutes, the low back. Hips track to knees, knees to toes. Exhale, lower back down. And again, we'll all keep going, but you'll follow the rhythm of your breath. As the front muscles start to open and lengthen across the front of those hips, we might be able to lift a little higher. And this should move the weight into the meaty part of the shoulders, not the neck. And remember, we want to avoid tucking the chin towards the chest. This does turn into a gentle inversion for some of us as the chest, the heart gets a little higher than the head. Now, if we want to go back to some of that shoulder work, we'll add our water pump arms again. So squeeze the back. On the inhales, the arms float back up as the hips lift up and all the way overhead. And on the exhales, as the hips lower, the arms lower. So choose your pleasure. Let's all take one more round, whatever variation we're choosing. And we'll catch up again on our exhales once the arms and the hips come back down to the ground. Take the block out, walk the feet as wide as a yoga mat. The knees are still bent up towards the ceiling. One more time, drop the elbows out from the shoulders, backs of the hands flop to the floor, and cactus arms. We'll flow through windshield wiper pose now. So as you exhale, let the knees drop over to the right. They will not be stacked. They're like the windshield wipers of the car. Your left side will arch up off the floor. Try to keep the shoulders grounded, and we'll feel this across the front of the left hip flexor, the thigh, even into the waist. Now we'll move with our breath again. So on our inhales, the knees will float up, and the exhales will take us to the other side. So we'll drop over to the left. Energetically, we can try to lower those knees a little further if you want to deepen the pose and stretch. Inhale floats us up. Exhale, wipe to the other side. So now the head can move the opposite direction of the knees if you want a little counter twist, for the neck and shoulders today. We'll take this one more time to each side. So move the knees one more time to the right to stretch the left side out. And then breathe the knees one more time to the left and down to stretch the right side out. And then after we finish that left side, float the head and the knees right back to center, pull the belly in, hug the knees in, hands to knees, Little rock across the low back. Inhale, let's float both legs up to the ceiling and waterfall pose now. Take a hold behind those thighs. Feel free to massage or vigorously rub into those hamstrings. That can help those hamstrings warm and lengthen a little bit. Point and flex the feet a couple times. Take a hold of the outer thighs. Inhale, Supta Konasana, wide angle stretch. Elbows act as kickstands to help support the weight of the legs. Roll through the ankles. To deepen the stretch, if you're ready, move the hands to the inside of the legs. Massage those muscles. The more we try to press our heels out and away from us and pull the toes to the shin bones, opening up the eyes of the knees, the more that will intensify the stretch. Low back and shoulders should be relaxed to the ground. Take a deep breath in. On the exhale, squeeze those inner thighs. Help with your hands if needed. Bringing those legs straight back up to waterfall pose. And then exhale, we'll bend the knees. Give them a little hug in. Float the nose to the knees if you want to do a little stretch for the upper back, neck, and shoulder area. And then we'll relax the head down. Bring the right arm beside the head and we'll roll and pause on our right side. So we have been little gentle inversions and on our back. So take a moment so our blood pressure can regulate. And then look to the ground, press into the ground, and we'll bring our bodies up. So we are coming into a seated posture for our next pose, and Baddha Konasana, bound angle pose. I would recommend sitting up on something unless you have very open hips. So maybe your folded blanket that you used earlier. I'm using my cushion. If you are higher up, you may also need to take support underneath the outside under your knees with yoga blocks or rolled up towels and blankets. And if Baddha Konasana is not comfortable for the body, feel free to sit, in your cross-legged pose or heel-to-heel pose. Hands beside the hips. Try to float your pelvis up a little bit and wiggle and rock so that we're more towards the front of our sit bones. Literally pull the flesh out of the way if needed. We do want to sit up as tall as possible so that our spine is in neutral. If you find that you're being pulled out of alignment and rounding the back, then we need to adjust our pose. And then try to bring the soles of the feet to touch. Flare the toes away from each other and feel the contact points at the mound of the big toe, mound of the pinky toe, and try to connect the centers of the heels as well. And by flaring the toes out and pressing the 3 points of the feet together, that helps improve the health of the arches of our feet. From here, you'll draw your heels in towards your pubic bone as much as is comfortable for the knees and hips, and only to the point that you can continue to sit up tall. Now put a little bit of effort here. We'll engage those lower bandhas so the pelvic floor can take a little squeeze in and up, and just below the navel center to help support the back. Bring the arms out beside the body, fingertips to the floor. And on our inhale, reach the right arm up beside the ear, and then lean over to the left. So we'll take our seated triangle pose and bound angle pose, but we'll also follow our breath today. So on the inhale, use your muscles, pull yourself back up, switch hands. So right fingertips to the floor, left arm up. We're pulling the waist out of the hips. So we should feel a really nice stretch and opening here. The inhale brings us up. And the exhale, lateral extension. We're moving in a lateral plane. Keep both sit bones rooted. Inhale. The head should stay just in a nice neutral line with the spine here. Continue to try to keep the 3 points of the feet connected and toes flaring apart. Let's take it one more time to our left, big stretch. And one more time over to our right. Now we'll meet on the inhale with both arms reaching up towards the ceiling. Bring the palms to touch and exhale to our center. We will hold Baddha Konasana for a little longer. If you did take a modification and crossed your ankles instead, switch up the cross of your ankles and go from there. So those of us in bound angle pose will now bring hands to feet or ankles. Bend the elbows back and towards the body. Some of us might find a little bit of movement here, but the front of the spine should stay as long as the back of the spine. There's no hunching and rounding in this pose. That will just compromise our intervertebral discs. So draw and contract through the low belly. And I'm just allowing the gravity to traction out my thigh bones, not forcing, pushing anything towards the ground. The exhales, those muscles start to open. Maybe we go a little further. So some of you might be able to walk your fingertips forward at this point. Add a yoga block or a book or some support if you are able to bring the belly, the heart, and head towards the floor. And you might even get to the point where your forehead is rested to a prop or the floor. Now we're still driving the sit bones back and down, still contracting through the pelvic floor and the belly. And another action we can feel energetically is if we're trying to draw those thigh bones into the hip sockets. Let's all take one more nice deep breath in the pose. And then on our inhale, if you've gone further, take a couple breaths. We'll float the head up, walk the fingertips in and up. Sit up tall, take the hands underneath the knees, step your feet out wider than your hips. Bring the fingertips or hands behind the body and just gently windshield wipe your knees here. So a little rock side to side. Again, that little loosening of the hip sockets. And then we'll slide our heels out into a V. So if you need to make adjustments in your space, do so. Upavishta Konasana, seated angle pose. If you're lifted higher up like me, and we're hyperextended knees and they're dropping down, you might need to take folded towels underneath the knees to support them. Or just contract your quads and keep a tiny micro bend in the knee joint so you're not just collapsing the knees out and down. Flex those feet, toes to shins, toes and knees should be facing straight up towards the ceiling. Lift up on those sit bones. Again, move fingertips forward. If you're able to maintain a long, straight spine, some of us might be able to move a little bit more forward. Be very mindful how this translates into your low back. So for me, this is about as far as I can go. We're taking a stretch here in the inner thighs back to the legs. And if your breath takes you further into the pose, that's fine. But sometimes backing out of the pose is the best place to be. Seated angle pose. One more breath. And then our next inhale, we'll float the head up. Walk those fingertips back in. Sit up tall. Hands behind those knees. Help them up. Feet are wider than the hips. Fingertips, hands behind the body. Give it a little loosey rocking. So the next pose we'll practice is deer pose, or sometimes called Christina's pose. And I think we've done this a couple times. And what we need to be careful of are knees. So what we'll do is, you can stay up on your prop if you have it. We'll bend the right heel in towards the pelvis and allow the right knee to drop towards the ground. This is the one that's a little bit more challenging for people. You will step your left foot out, keep it flexed, and drop the left knee down towards the ground. Now I'm going to take my bath towel, so I have a little bit of cushion, and bring it underneath my knees. Because one variation of this pose, we do lift up, and so that can put pressure on the knees. So we'll figure it out once we get there, but I'll also give us a modification. So the left foot can move further out or in, depending what feels best. Ideally, we want both sit bones to be equal, and the sole of the right foot might graze the top of the thigh. So some of us will notice pretty quickly that if we try to bring the right knee down and we don't have our cushion, I just moved mine out of the way. If I try to bring this knee down, this hip lifts because it has to compensate, because that's how I'm built. If I try to bring my right sit bone down, this knee pops up. I'm very internally rotated in my hips. So wherever you are, try to find as much stability. Modified version first. Bring the right hand down beside the hip. This is our strong, straight arm. And then on the inhale, just take the left arm over the ear and lean it over. So again, the idea is that we're pulling our upper body out from the hip, but continue to try to root the sit bone down in this version. And then on the exhale, we release. So you're more than welcome to just do the arm and do the lean. If you want to take it a step further, press through the knuckles of the right hand. Inhale, we float the hips up. This is where that little bit of pressure comes onto the knees. So I am contracting my backside a little bit, thrusting those hips a little forward. My neck is long and I'm finding this extension. Exhale, we lower down. So you'll choose your flavor, and let's do 3 more with our breath. Inhale, lifting. We should feel a nice stretch along that whole left side. Exhale. Now some people like to keep their drishti forward or upwards, a little bit more heart opening. You can even look down towards that front knee. So one more time with our breath. Big stretch. And then we'll meet on that exhale. Now hold here, take the left fingertips and bring them over to the opposite knee. Try to turn that palm up and slide the back of the hand around the knee if it's available. Right fingertips will walk a little bit further behind us, so we're moving into a twist. Sit bones stay grounded, lift up through the spine, and on the exhale, rotate through the upper back, the shoulders, the neck, and try to peek behind you as far as you can. Big breath in. On our next exhale, we release the pose, so we bring the head and the body back around to face forward. Bring the hands behind the body. Very carefully, try to float that right knee up, slide the right foot out. You might need to lean a little bit to release the left foot. Rock it side to side. So other side, we'll draw the left heel in towards the pelvic floor, allow that knee to drop down to the ground. Flex the right foot, bring the right foot back and around, and the right knee comes down to the ground. So position this foot, whatever feels best for that hip, slightly further in or out, but still be sitting up on support if that helps. Maybe the sole of the left foot touches or grazes that right thigh. So once we're in that position, we'll sit up as tall as possible. Do pull in through those lower locks to help support the low back. We'll start with the modification. Left hand is our strong arm that will do some of the work. Inhale the right arm up beside the ear. Without lifting, just do a little lean over. Again, this lateral movement, and then exhale, come down. Choosing to stay there, we know the math now, or inhale, squeeze the backside, pressing the hips up, slightly forward, reaching overhead, and the exhale lowers us back down. We'll do 2 more times. Inhale, lift. Exhale. Adjust the drishti a little differently depending on how that feels for your neck, gazing forward, up, or down to that front knee. Let's do 1 more. I lost count, but it feels good. This is actually one of my favorite postures. Squeeze and lift, reach it up. We'll meet on the exhale when we get there, coming back down. Right fingertips will try to float to the opposite knee. Turn the palm out and try to slide the back of the hand around that knee. Sit up tall, anchor the sit bones, left fingertips, walk a little bit further behind. Inhale, create that space. Exhale, try to rotate more through the upper back, the neck, the head, and those eyes. Peek behind us as far as we can see. Take 1 more big breath in. And exhale, we'll release. Bring the head, the shoulders, and the body back around. Lean back so that we can take some pressure off the knees. Carefully step left foot out. You might need to lean over to one side to get the right foot to come out. Little rock. So however is easiest for you to transition, we'll move into our tabletop. You might be able to bring both feet to one side, drop the knees down, and move up and around. But we'll take a moment here to reorganize in our space. Fingers are wide, stack those joints, nice strong arms, press into the ground. Draw that low belly in, your knees should be stacked right underneath the hips. A little bit of space between those knees and our hips. From here, stretch that right leg back, single leg stretching just to open up the eye of the knee from the flexion we've been doing. Shift your weight back through the heel. Always an option to add a little bit of strengthening here in our hurdler's plank, trying to pull the left knee and the left foot from the floor. Nice strong upper body, breathe it in. Exhale, bring the knees back down. Keep that low back and hips level, stretch the left foot back. Foot's to the floor, we're shifting our weight back to that heel to open up the back of the knee. A little bit of strengthening. Pull the right knee and foot from the floor in our runner's plank. Be mindful of where your head is in space. Looks good. Breathe it in. Exhale, tabletop. Rising up on fingertips in our Hatha Bandha, nice rounding through the knuckles or fist for wrists at any time. Inhale, gentle back bend. Lift up through the tailbone, roll that breath like a wave all the way up the spine. Exhale, again like a wave, tuck the tail under, draw the belly in, look to the navel center, round the back. One more time, inhale, try to move that breath through each vertebra all the way up the spine to the crown of the head. Exhale, scoop, tuck and round and roll through the back. And then inhale to neutral position. Let's sit back in our child's pose for a moment. Try to open the knees wide of the hips, big toes touch. Sink the hips to the heels. Shoulder stretching, we'll keep those hands wide. And relax the heart and the head to the ground. Remember, if the head doesn't easily touch, use your arms, two stacked fists, or some type of prop. We really want the head to be grounded in this pose. Nice big stretch for the low back and that whole area around the hips. Take one more big breath here. And then on our inhale, flip the head and the body up. Realign the knees and the feet. Fingers are wide, hands are wide. Walk those hands about one hand's distance forward. Tuck the toes under, draw the low belly in. Pressing those hips up, back, and down. Adho Mukha Svanasana. So this might be our first downward facing dog of our day. Let's take a few moments here. Feel free to pedal your heels, one heel at a time. Bending the opposite knee. Remembering that there's internal rotation in the hands, rooting through the mount of the index finger and the thumb. External rotation in the upper arm bones, drawing those shoulders away from the ears. Continue to draw that low belly in, drawing the belly to the thighs, pressing the thighs to the back. Simply bend the knees if you have tension in the low back. And remember, revisit tabletop or child's pose at any time. So let's all try to sink those heels towards the ground. Heels disappearing behind the toes, toes facing straight forward. Take one more breath, find the stillness in the pose now. And then inhale, look forward, walk those feet forward, Uttanasana, forward fold. Feet should still be parallel, nice and strong, micro bend the knees. Pulling the knees up to engage the quads. Really important to have those lower locks engaged in our forward folds. If we're not forward folding for whatever reason, you can bring yourself up to mountain pose and practice your alignment there, or modify by bending knees, elbows to thighs. Those of us in Uttanasana, we may also ragdoll hands to elbows. This is a nice way to release tension in the neck and shoulders, doing a little shoulder sway side to side. We'll do a little bit of our back strengthening. So on our next inhale, lift the chest, hands to shins or higher. Really try to pull the shoulder blades together on the back. Exhale, fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Adding a little bit more for those of us that would like. Locust the arms beside the body, palms face each other. Exhale, fold. And one more. Inhale, squeeze the back to lift the chest. Exhale, sit back. Arms will float forward and up. Utkatasana. Shrug the shoulders from the ears. Knees should still be tracking towards those toes. Feel free to keep the arms up. However, if you have tension in your neck and shoulders today, let it go. Bring your hands to your heart center. listening to what our body's needs are for the day. Going right into a little bit of our balance, make sure you're safe, focus your drishti in one spot, squeeze and hover the right foot from the floor. Exhale it down, squeeze and hover the left foot from the floor. Exhale it down, try to sink a little lower down. And then on our inhale, we'll re-extend the whole body up. So reach the arms up, extended mountain, drishti slightly upwards, open the chest, turn the palms out, exhale, float the arms down. Big shoulder roll. So from here, we are gonna go into, let's see if I have time, we need more hours. Okay, so let's do a shoulder stretch here. I asked you to get a strap earlier for the end of class. We haven't done this one in a while, but it feels really nice for a lot of us. So let's grab our straps now. That's what we'll do. Make it an executive decision. So if you do not have a yoga strap, you can take a scarf. Scarves work great. Or a long folded bath towel, tightly rolled up. And you'll have something to apply tension to. That's basically what we want. So when we get into this big shoulder stretch, it is important that the legs and the lower half of the body stay nice and grounded and strong. So uncollapse the knees by micro bending the knees, pull up through the front of those thighs, pick the toes up if you feel like you're not engaging, rooting through the mount of the big toe inner heel, mount of the pinky toe outer heel. Draw front body to back body. It's also very important that we don't start hyperextending into that low back. So you really want to stay connected and grounded here. We'll take a wide grip to start and find that tension. So you are pulling on your strap. And on the inhale, we'll just take the strap overhead. And then on the exhale, we'll lower it back down. So again, we're following this fluidity of our breath. The wider you go, a little bit easier it is on the shoulder joint. If you want a little bit more, you narrow your grip. I personally am taking care of my left shoulder. So when that shoulder tells me that it has had enough, that's where I stop. And that's often the case for a lot of us. So if the mobility in one shoulder is a little bit impinged, don't force it. That's where we stop. Even if the other shoulder wants to go a little further. Now, if we do want to take this a little further, I'm not sure I'll be able to demo this today. We can bring it up and then exhale, roll through that shoulder back and down. Legs are strong, and then the inhale brings it back up and around. So you're making almost a full circle here. So your choice, you'll get that nice movement around the shoulder girdle. Try to keep the head relaxed on the shoulders. One more. Now we'll take it one more time overhead, and this time we'll find the stillness in the pose. So for some of us, allowing those arms to come slightly behind us is going to give us that really nice opening, the countering of all the forward flexion we do. So you'll want to find the place that you are not straining, but stretching and opening. Neck should be relaxed, legs are super strong. And then pull on that strap. Let's all take one more breath wherever we are. Feels good. And then on our exhale, we can release. Place the strap down near the mat. Let's hopefully we'll have time to use it. Shake your hands out. We're gonna go with the fingertips out. So let's do one more balancing pose before we get into some deeper hip stuff. This is gonna be added movement again, and this is gonna bring in that concept of water again. Right, a swan sips the water, I think it's called. It's a Qigong movement. I have been doing it the last few classes, so if you've been coming, you're getting more and more familiar with the sensation. So in these type of movements, you kind of want to be a little bit more loosey-goosey. We don't want to tighten and be rigid. We want to feel this fluidity in our joints. So there is a little bending in the knees here, sinking towards the ground. Turn the palms forward, make little cups in the hands, and pretend like we're scooping up little pools of water. And then slide those hands towards the waist so that elbows are slightly back. And then we'll shift our weight into our left side. Start to find some balance. And on our inhale, float the left knee up. And then try to touch the big toes slightly forward. Flex the foot. You will be bending in the standing leg. Heel, toe, lift, and lower. Good. Let's try the other side. So we lean a little bit to our left. Inhale, the knee comes up. The foot's pretty relaxed until we flex it. So toe, heel, toe, lift, and lower. Shift the weight. Be mindful, try not to spill our water in our hands. It's toe, heel, toe, lift, and lower. Breath is smooth, even, and steady. It's as if we're standing in front of a little puddle or pond, and we're trying to make the tiniest little ripples in the surface of the water. One more time to each side. We'll lift, we'll lower, we'll meet back in center. This next pose is called our movement, pushing out the walls. So on the inhale, take those little pools of water up near the shoulders. Flip your palms out. And this is a very strong, forceful exhale as you push. You should feel all of your muscles in your arms tighten. My toes are lifting, my legs are strong. And then drop, soften, inhale, pull it in. Exhale, push. You can also let out a nice hissing breath through the mouth or a strong ujjayi breath. And then inhale, soften. Bringing these two qualities together, the soft fluidity and then this powerful, able to move mountain strength from water. Inhale, soft. This time we'll push the wall forward. So on the exhale, push both hands forward. Tighten up the muscles in the legs, the core, the arms. And then inhale, soft. Flow back in. Exhale, push. Soften. Inhale. One more time. Put as much effort into it as you can. Push and exhale. Inhale softly. This exhale pushes the hands and the energy all the way back down to the earth. Turn the palms out. Big breath in. Draw a nice big circle, wide and overhead. Reach, lift, and lengthen. Join the palms together. Exhale, lower the hands to the heart. Okay, so good job on that. I love that one. We're gonna move into Malasana or garland pose. This is a big, powerful pose for the area around our hips. I've been mentioning it and I want us to get to it. So again, I'm gonna show some modifications first. For me, people, it might not be great to lower into this pose as we sometimes do. So you might just have to sit on the floor and then bring your knees up. This is what the pose will look like. You can even do this in a chair, but if you have a yoga blocker too, let me just show you where we're going so your brain has an idea. This is gonna work for the low back and knees today. So Malasana, it's a squat position, knees are wide, elbows end up between the heart. Now I'm in a supported version, so I'm not really putting much effort into this, but I am still getting that hip opening. The fuller version is a low squat, so I'm not sitting on anything. My hips are hovering. Now that will put pressure in the knees and around the hips and the low back. So if you are taking a supported version, you're welcome to go there. If you want to drop into it in your space, the toes will turn out slightly. Some people like to hinge forward from the hips, bring their fingertips down, and then drop the hips down. But another traditional way to go into it is bringing the hands to the heart. This is where the knees not need to be in the equation, and you slide the spine down into it. So this brings in that little bit of strength element. Now, once we're in the pose, you have to decide where you're able to cultivate the stillness element. So add the support under the sit bones. If you're hovering here as I am, there is some energy of the elbows pressing to the insides of the knees, but push the knees back into the elbows. We're not just jamming into those joints. Create some resistance there. And we will add Yoni Mudra. Yoni Mudra is the mudra of the womb. This pose is often practiced in our prenatal yoga practice, but this is also a nice way to improve the pelvic floor, reproductive organ, urinary health for both men and women. So adding Yoni Mudra, take the fingers, the backs of the hands together and interweave the fingers. And then you release the index fingers to touch and the thumb. It's almost like open the people in the church and here's the steeple, if you remember that from a kid. And you're making the shape that does mimic a little bit of the female reproductive organ areas. And you may either turn Yoni Mudra towards the heart to direct the energy back into the body, or flip the mudra forward and a little bit closer to the ground. So this mudra is also associated, like I said, with the womb, the area of the pelvis and the hips. And it generates creativity and the idea of birth. And that might be just giving birth to an idea, to a concept, to a feeling. Wherever we are, try to take one more breath. And then we're going to try one more version of this pose. This is going to be a more powerful version. Please listen to your body. This mudra, we release Yoni Mudra, but you keep the index fingers and thumbs touching. You flare the hands open, and you try to float both arms up. So this is really powerful if you're not supported. And then we gaze through that same symbolic shape there between those fingers. And this is a visionary mudra of looking into that concept of giving birth to ideas. Big breath in. And then exhale. We'll release the pose. So look, if you're low to the ground like I am, you might be able to bring your hands back around and just drop down to the ground. If you're on support, just take your time to lift yourself up and slide your support out. We'll all come back down to a seated position. Walk those feet forward, hands behind the body, little gentle rock, let it go. A big step. All right, so from here, I get overambitious. I need another hour. I promised us Supta Padang Kustasana, so that's what we'll work towards. So we might need to readjust ourselves on our mats here. We'll get more in on Wednesday. So we'll find our way towards the middle of our mat. You can lock yourself down to your back. If you want to do that little bit of strength element, plant the feet, reach the fingertips forward, rounding through the spine. So this is articulation. I'm hollowing out the belly to contract my abs, and I'm trying to slowly come down. Vertebra by vertebra. If you're already on your back, we'll catch up with you here. When the head comes down, reach the arms overhead. Let's all stretch and straighten the legs back out, finding our long body stretch. Feel the abs and the rib cage expand. Flex the feet, spread those fingers and toes. Breathe it in. And then exhale, we'll float our arms down. Walk our feet in. Draw the belly in. And hug our knees in for a moment. Just rock it out. So we'll go through our Supta Padang Kustasana on each side. We'll just take a more simple variation of this today, combining that fluidity with the stretch. To bring the feet to the floor, we'll start with the right side. Take a hold of your strap or your scarf, whatever you're using. Bend the knee, right knee in, taking the strap near the lower arch of the foot towards the heel. Now try to hold the strap open so the heart stays open and the shoulders can stay more relaxed. You are welcome to loop that strap around the hands. And then first thing, we want to press that heel up and try to open the back of the knee up. And find a lot of length through the inner thigh, through that inner heel. Excuse me. and contract from the outer heel to the outer thigh. Face should be relaxed, throat's relaxed. To deepen the stretch, slide the left heel forward, the left leg is now an anchor, and that foot is just as actively flexed. If the leg is straight, we might, with our breath, try to draw it a little closer towards the torso. If it's challenging to straighten the leg, let loose of the strap a little bit and let the leg come further towards the ground so that you can get that length in the leg. Take a breath. Now we'll take hold of the strap in the right hand. Bring the left hand on top of the left hip. Your left side must stay grounded, low back, flat to the floor. Bend the right knee if needed to get that thigh bone angling up towards the torso. Bend the right elbow, and on the inhale, drop the elbow to the ground as a kickstand. Keep tension on the belt. Keep both feet active. From there, we may try to re-extend the right leg straight. Round that low back, feeling the stretch across the front of the pelvis. Left arm may reach up from the shoulder, head turns to the left. Take a couple deep breaths. Our next inhale will bring the head and help the leg back up. Take a hold of the strap with the left hand. Now we're pulling the right thigh bone down into that hip socket, still trying to keep our back flat at first, and just angling the straight leg over our midline. Move it around in space a little bit until you can get into this nice stretch for the IT band and the outer hip. Massage those muscles, gently punch into them to help them to relax. And then taking this into a twist, again, our left elbow, kickstand to the ground, keep tension on the belt. Allow the right hip to float up. Right arm may extend up from the shoulder, head turns to the right. Close the eyes. Start to slow the breath down even more as we wring any tension, tightness out of the body. Any tension or stress in the mind, let it go. Our next inhalation will float the head and the leg up. Open that strap up. If we want to try one more little variation, keeping the legs straight, try to float the nose up towards the knee, drawing the knee towards the nose. Some of you might actually make that contact. And then release tension on the belt. Slide the left foot in and up. So both legs are up into the strap for waterfall pose to neutralize and realign. And we'll do all that great stuff for our left side. So bring the right foot to the floor. Get the left leg as straight as possible. Continue to keep low back and shoulders relaxed. Let the hands do the majority of the work. Open up the eye of the knee. Little deeper, slide right heel forward. Keep the right foot flexing, just as active as the left foot, toes to shins. And in both legs, actually expand the inner thigh from the inner groin to the inner heel, finding length through the inside of the leg, and some contraction from the outer heel to outer hip and the outside of the leg. One more breath here. Take a hold of the strap in the left hand. Right hand grounds the hip. Keep the low back flat to the floor. Bend to the left elbow. Keep tension on the belt. Bend your left knee as needed to bring that thigh bone closer to the torso. Once the leg is open, re-extending from there. Right arm may reach out, head turns to the right. Take a couple deep breaths, actively keeping your right side rooted, opening up across the front of the pelvis. And on our inhale, We'll let the head and the leg come back up. We'll switch hands. Pull that left thigh bone down into the hip socket. Keep the low back flat. Angle the leg across the midline to whatever degree. Move it around a little bit, getting into that outer hip again. Massage or gently punch into those muscles. And then moving into the twist, right elbow to the floor, leg floats over, keep tension on the belt. The hip will float up, the left shoulder sinks down, left arm reaches out. Turning the head to the left, close the eyes. Slow, deep breaths in and out through the nose. Using our exhales to let it go. Our next inhale will float the head and help the leg back up. Open the strap up. If you like, draw leg closer to body, lift the head up, drawing the nose towards the knee for a breath. And then relax the head down, slide the right foot in and up, and pause and waterfall pose for a moment. And then we'll bend the knees, let go of the strap, wiggle the fingers out for a moment, cross one ankle over the other, let the weight of the thighs fall into the body. Continue to reach the arms up to the ceiling, but flop the fingertips forward for dead bug pose. Switch the cross at the ankles. Take one more deep breath in the pose. Uncross the ankles, reach for the toes, open the knees nice and wide in happy baby pose for a moment. Add a little movement if you like, or cultivate the stillness. Big breath in. Exhale, release, draw the knees and the feet together. Try to wrap the arms across the shins, nose to knees, giving our body a great big hug, stretching out the upper back, the shoulders. Breathe it in. And on our exhale, we get to let it all go. Moving into sometimes the most challenging pose, but most important, our final relaxation. If you're comfortable staying connected flat to the floor, choose to stay here, adjusting the shoulder blades and low backs, allowing the arm bones to roll open, palms up, fingertips curl up naturally. Knees fall together, taking weight out of the low back. Our knees fall back open, soles of the feet touch, bound angle. Or stretching the legs out nice and wide down the mat, feet flop open into Shavasana. If you want to add your pillows and blankets and add additional support for the body, please do so. If you have an eye covering nearby and you'd like to place that on top of the eyes to help them relax, do so. I'll guide us through just a little bit more relaxation. Give us several moments of peace and quiet. And then use the singing bowl to bring us out and finish our class together today. Let the whole weight of the body sink into the ground. Feeling that stillness come over the whole body. Let go of any expression across the face. With the lips softly touching, release the tongue and the lower jaw to gravity. Relaxing the throat. Allowing the weight of the shoulders and the arms sinking a little bit deeper into the ground. Relax all the way around the torso, the abdomen, the low back. Notice and feel the area around the pelvis for a moment, the bones of the pelvis, the connection of the thigh bones and the hip sockets. Feeling that whole area release and relax, including the larger muscles of the buttocks, the hips, the thighs. And then again, just like water, allow that relaxation to trickle down the legs, behind the knees, into the ankles, feet, and toes. The breath is easy and calm. Empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless like water. Now you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, and it becomes the teapot. Now water can flow, or it can crash. Be water, my friend. We'll slowly come back to our breath. And start to gently breathe life back into the body, waking up the toes, the fingertips. Rocking the head. If the knees are open in Baddha Konasana, float the knees up, stretching the legs out. Inhale, breathing. Let's float those arms back overhead. One more time on our long body stretch. Stretching out the right side, stretching out the left side. And then taking a really big breath in to stretch everything out, fingers and toes, creating a lot of space inside of the body. On the exhale, float the arms down, walk the feet in, and hug the knees in to massage the back. Right arm falls beside the head, rolling over to our side, pausing in Supta Balasana. And then keeping the eyes soft or closed, press into the ground. We'll bring the body up and visit any comfortable seated posture to take just a couple more breaths together today. Sit up tall on those sit bones, lengthen up through the crown of the head, being mindful of our surroundings. Reach the arms out beside the body, palms up. Another deep breath in to float those arms up and to gather up everything we need for the rest of our day. Turn the palms out, take an even bigger breath out, float the fingertips all the way back down to the floor, and let go of all that other junk we don't need today. One more breath together. Inhale, arms up. Palms touch. Exhale, hands to Anjali Mudra in front of the heart. Humbly bow the head down to the heart. Pausing to thank our bodies, ourselves, each other, and anyone else that made it possible for us to connect and practice our yoga together today. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om peace.